how do you speak with these angels or these VCs or these high net worth individuals? How do you speak with them in such a way that really educates them of this? Because you're kind of in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And on one hand, you have the responsibility to the entrepreneur to sort of prepare them for the ecosystem they're going to involve with. On the other hand, you're providing a really important role to funders who, if I imagine they're kind of like your ideal case funder, they're seeking you out and going, listen, I know that I'm like a 78-year-old machinist who grew up in Tuscaloosa. I just like entrepreneurship and I love investing, but I have no idea what it is like to grow up black in America or as a woman in America or as insert any other sort of like underrepresented role. What do you provide those folks with? How do you do that? How do you sensitize folks in that kind of way?
Yeah. So we are just getting started seriously with that work. So
also, no shade to Tuscaloosa.
No.
It could be anywhere. It could be New Orleans.
No, that's right. It could be New York City. Let's be real.
And it is. That's the thing.
Right. That's right. So my colleague Elizabeth is sort of leading some new work for us, where we are going to be working explicitly on like the investor side of the table. So these first 5 years has really been about working on the entrepreneur side, and we're not going to stop that work. We're going to continue that work. But I think it's a two-sided equation, and so, I had the opportunity to do a training maybe 2 years ago with the Race Equity Institute. And there's a project here called the Campaign for Equity of New Orleans. And so this Race Equity Institute, REI, has been coming to New Orleans once a month for the last 2 years. And I had the opportunity to do their 2-day training the first time they came. And it was powerful for me, even as a person of color, to sort of sit through and walk through the history of how, so we always talk about like, race being socially constructed, but to sort of like walk through the history of like how that came to be and just like, how explicit it was, where they wanted to, figure out a way to to prevent white indentured servants from running away with black slaves, how they sort of like, very specifically kind of created different penalties for if you ran away with someone who was white versus if you ran away with someone who was black. And like you can begin to sort of build a construction,
like an incentive system
of that way of like, a system of advantages based on race, right? Like even to the point where it's like, hey, we don't want you to run away, but if you run away with a white person, like that will be penalized differently than if you want to run away with the slave, right?
Wow.
So just like being able to like sort of see that history, because we sort of like just kind of throw out
it out as a catch-all,
right? Like socially constructed. We're like, well, how do we actually construct it? So all this to say is being able to sort of see that was powerful, but within that training, they sort of have this analogy that I often use, and I give them credit because it's not mine, but talking about the groundwater, so they sort of say, imagine like your favorite body of water, and if you were to see and the water is really dirty and the fish were dying in that water, you wouldn't look at the water, you wouldn't look at the fish and be like, man, what's wrong with those fish? Like, why are they dead?
Yeah.
You look at it and you say, that water's dirty. like we got to do something about that.